There's always some visual novels out there that always remain in my mind, mainly due to how memorable or important it was to me. Whether it was Hoshiori, If My Heart Had Wings, or Arcade Spirits, there was another that really resonated with me during my first year of visual novels, and that was A Sky Full of Stars, one of PULLTOP's well-known series, essentially a spiritual successor to If My Heart Had Wings, but focusing more on stargazing rather than flying through the skies on a glider. And I wanted to return back to the series and basically go over it again and explore through the last visual novel in the series. So let's head back. Let's head back to the series where gazing at the stars can create some serious romantic drama. This is A Sky Full of Stars. Released back in December 18, 2015, exclusively on the PC, A Sky Full of Stars is a romance/drama visual novel. As I said, the game was developed and published by PULLTOP for the Japan release, while Moe Novel published the worldwide release. The story centers around Akito, a member of the Astronomy Club who would always look up every night to gaze at the stars with his childhood friends Hikari and Saya. However, as time goes by, his love for the stars have died down, and no longer looks up at them like he used to, as well as being less connected with his childhood friends. But after receiving an invitation to attend the revival of the Pleiades meeting with other astronomy clubs from other schools and an unexpected reunion with Hikari, whom he hasn't seen since she moved away, together with Hikari and Saya, along with Senpai Orihime and Kohai Corona, they will soon revive the long-lost Six Stars Club and show their hometown to simply look up and admire the stars and its beauty. The story is much more complex and detailed than If My Heart Had Wings. Its focus on astronomy is very detailed and goes into the science and history of it all really nicely. It's also much more drama based, as a lot of the story, there are parts where it takes itself quite seriously with its problems. And there is one major difference from If My Heart Had Wings. A Sky Full of Stars also focuses on the past. While playing through the novel, sometimes it will leave the story and focus on flashbacks that happened to the characters when they were little. These scenes are important if you want to understand the themes and situations the characters went through, and it can get kind of emotional, as you see how the characters first met, what their life was like back in the past, and what caused them to make their friendship fall apart. Speaking of the past, in some points in the story, you will see a sort of timeline that shows you where you are in the story. This timeline will show you how much time has passed from part of the story you were reading, or if the story will go back to a flashback scene, it will show you how far you went back. I really like the timeline. It's really cool to see both the present and the past and how the past affected the story. Also, the gameplay, there's really nothing much to say really. It's the same like any other visual novel. You click to continue the story and you make choices along the way. The characters are the best part of the game. You got Hikari and Saya, your two childhood best friends. You have Orihime, your senpai who wants to revive the Six Stars Club and unite all the clubs together. And finally, you have Corona, your Kohai who is also your best bro's sister. These are your four main heroines. You also got your side characters as well. You got your best bro Takachi, Honoka, who is Orihime's assistant, Hinami, who is a member of Akito's astronomy club, and the rest of the other members from the other school's clubs. But the four main heroines are the highlight of the story. Hikari's story and Saya's stories are both connected, but they will tell their own story from their point of view, so both routes will have a different experience from one another. Orihime's story and Corona's story, however, are all separate from Hikari and Saya's stories, as they will tell their own personal story. All the characters are lovable and amazing. Their personalities really shine once you continue to know them and talk with them. But in my opinion, my favorite character has to be Orihime. She's a really relaxing character who is basically a true fan of astronomy. You can see how passionate she is with trying to revive not only the Six Stars Club, but also revive the love of astronomy Akito once had. When she talks about astronomy, she can go on and on about them. And when the topic becomes serious, she knows when to take it serious. She's not loud or outgoing like Hikari, she's not overly dramatic like Saya, and she's not overly obsessive like Corona. She's basically a normal yet passionate and likable character who has only one goal in mind: to show how important astronomy can be to others. She may not have a ton of character development unlike the other three heroines, but she's definitely the most charming out of all of them. The voice acting, similar to If My Heart Had Wings, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's extremely well done and makes the characters come alive. Of course, with each voice differentiating from each other. But the voice acting really makes the novel much more enjoyable and overall fun. Plus, the voice acting for this visual novel is actually quite immersive when you use headphones, as it's trying to be realistic in where the characters are talking to you. So in some scenes, you might hear a character's voice that can only be heard in the right side of your headphones. It's actually really cool. Anyways, I personally love the voice acting of Orihime. Her voice is so relaxing. It's not too loud or too low. It's like the perfect volume, very much in the same vein as Amani's voice from If My Heart Had Wings. Corona's voice is fun to listen to, and Miharu's voice is always hilarious during some situations. Hikari's and Saya's voices are pretty good as well, and suit their characters. In fact, all the voices suit their characters. They really picked out the best voice actors to play these characters.
今日はすごく楽しかった。いっぱい充電したから、明日からまた頑張らないとだね。やっぱり光がいなきゃだね。光がいるとどんどん前へ進んでいける気がする。でもあれは違う。以前閉館になったプラネタリウムから譲り受けたという数十年前に作られしクラシックな光学式投影機。内容も超難しいんだよ。入学後にやるとこの予習も含まれてるみたい。
And what's cool is that a few of the voice actors from If My Heart Had Wings voice some of the characters as well, which is really cool. Now the music. Oh, the music. It's simply incredible. Once you hear the first pieces of the music when you play the visual novel for the very first time, you can already tell that this will be a different experience than If My Heart Had Wings. The music feels much more angelic and harmonious. Much of it doesn't feel upbeat or lively. It's very soft with its music, and a lot of it can be really cozy to listen to, especially a few of the songs. Here, take a listen to the music and see for yourself. So like I said before about the roots, Hikari and Saya's roots are both connected with each other, while Orihime's and Corona's roots are separate from each other. However, Hikari's root, from what I played, is the true, well, I guess, canon root to the entire story, especially with how her root ends, as it's both emotional and extremely heartwarming. But it's also hard to say which root is the quote-unquote canon root. Well, Hikari's root ends basically perfectly, Saya's route also ends in a very positive note as well. But on the other hand, Orihime's route and Corona's route endings feel a bit unfinished. It doesn't feel like the end of a story, as it feels like this is the beginning of something even bigger. Of course, I won't spoil you guys the routes, but just know that once you play through the routes, they are all wonderful in their own special way. The way they're executed is really unique yet familiar to what they've done with If My Heart Had Wings. The drama for the routes though is both emotional yet sometimes feel unnecessary, but it also feels forceful in many of the scenes, especially in both Hikari and Saya's route, as the drama in those routes could easily be fixed or not happen if the characters made the right choices. The drama for Hikari and Saya's routes mostly come from the love triangle situation, but also the choices they made in the past. The drama in Corona's route though is a bit more personal, mostly because it focuses on how you believe that you might not achieve anything in this world, but it also shows you the trouble of a person without a dream to pursue. Orihime's route doesn't have any drama at all, as it's a much more simpler and light-hearted story since it's focusing on romance and astronomy. But either way, while it feels unnecessary, some of the drama in specific moments of the story can honestly be great, and if executed correctly, it can deliver a surprisingly uplifting scene. The main character Akito is a great MC. He's a tiny bit similar to Aoi from If My Heart Had Wings, since they both lost interest in what they loved in the past due to a specific event. But once you continue more into the stories of both MCs, they're different from each other. Well, obviously, Akito lost interest in the stars due to a specific event in his childhood, while Aoi lost the ability to do his favorite hobby due to an accident. It's similar, but of course they're very different characters. For Akito, he loves seeing the stars with his childhood friends, but now he looks up at the stars without the same excitement he had when he was a child. He wants to remember that feeling again, and thanks to Orihime, he now has a chance to relive that same excitement. With reviving the Six Stars Club, he'll be able to ignite his love for the stars once more. That's what I like about Akito. At the last minute with all scenes lost, he's able to find a way to change the course of time. And once he ignites his love for the stars again, he does his best to keep that fire lit. He's passionate about the stars, and it definitely shows you once you reach halfway in the story. The visuals in my opinion is quite a step up from If My Heart Had Wings. While it's using more darker colors, the vibrant and colorful scenes along with its great character design really shows how beautiful the art can be. And finally, to close this out, the theme of astronomy really hits hard for the readers. The story is extremely passionate with explaining every little detail about the stars and galaxies. And again, while I'm not the biggest fan of astronomy, it's really fun and interesting to read through all of this and learn a bit more about it. A Sky Full of Stars lives up to its name, and definitely shows us that we should appreciate the stars more often. A Sky Full of Stars received overwhelmingly positive reviews from players alike, with many praising the characters, visuals, music, and story, with many players comparing them positively with If My Heart Had Wings, with one person saying, "If you love If My Heart Had Wings, then this visual novel will exceed every one of your expectations." So what's my review on this visual novel? It honestly surprised me with its execution and tone. The story felt very personal and emotional when it got to its serious moment. Although for me, the drama in the story felt unnecessary, or I should say, it could have been handled easily if it were for some odd choices by the characters. But the story overall was very enjoyable and kept me intrigued throughout. Again, the characters were the true highlight of the story. The music is absolutely amazing, the writing is cheeky and heartwarming, yet also a bit dramatic in some parts, the art is extremely beautiful, and the voice acting really immerses yourself into the world. And for me, it's a very entertaining visual novel to read. But now, let's move on and explore the next installment in the series. Let's take a look at its fandisc, A Sky Full of Stars, Fine Days. Released back in May 27, 2016, exclusively in Japan and on the PC, this is A Sky Full of Stars, Fine Days, the quote-unquote sequel to the original visual novel, developed and published by PULLTOP. As of now, or as I'm recording this, the game never got a worldwide release yet. It only came out in Japan. However, thanks to fans of the novel, we got an unofficial and perfect English translation patch that translates the game in English, making the game fully playable. So, let's use that patch and take a look at the novel. Right off the bat, you can already see the major differences from Fine Days and Flight Diary. While there are the same number of stories, all the 4 main heroines get their own after stories, unlike in Flight Diary, where you only get 3. You also get some standalone stories as well. So, let's take a look at the standalone stories first, and then we'll move on to the after stories. The first standalone story is about Miharu, surprisingly enough. I forgot to mention her before when I was talking about the original visual novel, but Miharu was Akito's homeroom teacher back in the day. She was a very caring and helpful teacher who would always help out students with their problems, even personal ones. But now, she's just a lazy woman who lies around all day and lives with her parents and has no job. Her story focuses more on the growing relationship between her and Akito, and as you continue to read her story, you'll find out more about her past, as well as find out what caused her to be her lazy self. Miharu's story is one of the best stories in this collection. The execution of her story is well put together and can be really emotional once you get to know the personal problems, the struggles and pain she had to endure during her teacher years, as well as her inability to believe that she can do something useful. The drama of the story is especially well done. While she did have some great moments in the original visual novel, I'm glad PULLTOP gave her a chance to shine in the spotlight. The next story focuses on Honoka, Orihime's assistant. Simply put, her story focuses on her growing love for Akito, and as she's tried to deal with these out-of-nowhere feelings, she also has to focus on her work as the new president of the Six Stars Club. This was a great story to read. In comparison to Miharu's story, this is a full-on romantic comedy, and while there's barely any drama at all, as it's mostly filled with cute romantic humor, you can still see that the story is also focusing on the theme of loneliness. But overall, it's well done and very much satisfied me with its story. The final standalone story focuses on Hinami. It's extremely similar to Honoka's story, but instead of Hinami growing feelings for Akito, it focuses on Akito's growing feelings for her, as well as Akito helping Hinami get to understand the club since he's about to graduate and pass the torch to Hinami. This story is sadly extremely forgettable. It's not by all means a bad story. It's actually quite cute and very lighthearted. The main issue is basically that it's pretty much nothing special. Nothing big happens in this story, as it's basically following a very simple path. There's no drama nor anything big, like big events that happen in the story. It's a shame really, because the ending is very sweet and sets up for more possibilities that could happen. So simply put, these 3 standalone stories are basically different scenarios that could have played out in the original story. Possibilities that could have happened. And again, Miharu was the best out of the 3. It was executed very well with its drama and gave an outstanding closure to a great secondary character. Hinami's story really disappointed me. Again, it's not a bad story, but it was nothing special and felt very plain. And Honoka's story was just simple and heartwarming, but delivered well with its theme. Next we begin the after stories. The first is about Hikari. Set a year after the original visual novel and years before the epilogue to her roots, the arrival of a comet is causing a buzz around the community. But to Akito and Hikari, the word comet brings up a bad memory from their childhood. But as Akito remembers, he soon comes up with a plan. The plan is to complete the planet observation notebook as it was missing some notes. So now, Akito and Hikari will look up to view the upcoming comments to complete the journal, as well as study for their entrance exams. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say this. This is probably the worst story in this collection so far. Why, you may ask? Because it's completely unnecessary to begin with. Hikari's route in the original visual novel ended perfectly. If you wanted a good story for Hikari's after story, then focus on what happens after the epilogue. This is just filler story, and while it does clear up some questions from the original visual novel, and we do get some cute romantic moments, it still doesn't change the fact that this is filler. The next after story focuses on Saya. Saya's after story is set 1 month after the original visual novel, and years before her epilogue. Her story mostly focuses on her getting a gift for Akito for Valentine's Day. However, to her, Valentine's Day is the problem, because she had a little trauma in her childhood during that holiday. So now it's up to Akito to get Saya the best Valentine's Day gift, while also helping her get past her trauma. Surprisingly, this is a fantastic after story, as it really shows the love Saya has for Akito, but it also goes in and explains their childhood in a much more in-depth view. The story gets more personal once we get to the climax, but it all wraps up extremely well, and the ending is literally perfect. A great way to end Saya's story. The next after story focuses on Orihime. Orihime's after story is set 1 year after the events of the original visual novel, where she's embarking on a new path. Of course, this leads her to become very busy and barely has the time to visit Akito. But when she does, she uses her time to go on dates with him. But while that is happening, an event that will introduce astronomical equipment manufacturers is taking place in Harbor Town. So in order to boost the event, Orihime, along with other members of the Six Stars Club, will help the event become an exciting and one-of-a-kind moment for Harbor Town. This is a much more simpler after story. Again, no drama whatsoever. It's just pure romantic goodness. And that's what makes Orihime's after story fantastic. It's not trying to be a big emotional event, it's only trying to be a lighthearted, unique, and fun story. And the way the after story ends, it gives closure to Orihime's story in such a romantic and satisfying way. The final after story focuses on Corona. Set a few months after the original visual novel, Corona's meteor radio observations continued uninterrupted as she has gained more knowledge and experience of her work. But a small event almost causes her to lose sight of joy of astronomy. So with the help of Akito and the other club members, she'll host a planned observation meeting. There, she will confirm what astronomy means to her. To be honest, I also didn't like this story. No doubt it gave more character for Corona, but then again, I guess I was just expecting way too much. It's not a bad story, I just really wasn't satisfied with it. Also, the ending to her after story is yet again an unfinished closure, which disappointed me the most. The after stories were a hit and miss for me. The best after stories were Saya's and Orihime's, while Hikari's and Corona's were just disappointing. Saya's and Orihime's gave a definitive end to their stories. Hikari's route just felt completely unnecessary to begin with, while Corona's story didn't have an ending at all. It was just a to-be-continued ending. It's honestly a huge shame really, cause I was expecting a definitive end to Corona's story, and I was expecting an epilogue continuation for Hikari's story. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be. But at least 2 of the after stories satisfied me with both its characters and story. Of course, I know some other players will have their own opinions. Some may like the after stories and some may not. It all just depends on, I guess, preferences. The presentation wise is still excellent. Yes, we do get some 18 plus content as per usual, and it's quite unique to say the least. But we also get some new music, and much of the visuals and art still retains from the original, which is very nice. And the theme of astronomy is still strong throughout the stories. And it still shows us how we should still appreciate it and look up at it once in a while. A Sky Full of Stars, Fine Days, received very positive reviews from players alike, with some praising the visuals, huge amount of content, music, and characters. So what are my thoughts on Fine Days? Honestly, this is a mixed bag for me. There were some parts I enjoyed and some parts I didn't. Like I said, the stories that I really enjoyed gave definitive endings to the girls' story. It delivered a great story for those girls and gave more character development to them. But on the other side, Hiname's story was mostly forgettable. While it may have been cute, it just didn't give me the same satisfying experience like the other standalone stories. Now Hikari's after story, that was just plain insulting. I wish it could have explored more on what happened in the epilogue of the original visual novel, rather than focusing before that. I feel like that would have been a better story to explore. Corona's after story, it just needed a better ending. That's really it. But the rest of Fine Days was great. Presentation wise was amazing, characters are once again the highlight of the stories, the new music is a joy to listen to, and the writing overall is pretty good. Overall, Fine Days for me was a mixed bag. It may have satisfied me with a few of its stories, but the other stories do need some work. Now originally in the old video, I didn't really go in depth with this VN, or fandisc I should say, due to it still being in Japanese, and not translated. But thanks to a few fans, it's been fully translated into English. It's the type of fandisc that's got a pretty unique story, but does a great job of handling this type of relationship. So, let's take a look at A Sky Full of Stars Interstellar Focus. This right here is A Sky Full of Stars Interstellar Focus, the latest and last fandisc in the Sky Full of Stars series. Released back in June 29, 2018, exclusively in Japan. Interstellar Focus focuses on an alternate route from the original novel, mainly focusing on Akito, Hikari, and Saya, where instead of choosing either of the two, he instead chooses to date both of them. So you'll see how the three will spend their summer vacation enjoying their new relationship. So the fandisc is going for a much simpler execution with its story, with the big factor being the polyamory relationship between Akito, Hikari, and Saya, which is definitely a very interesting approach for this fandisc, but also paves the way for some potential. The story itself is pretty short as it's only about 5 hours long, but what they were able to craft for the story of the fandisc was pretty well made. It's able to expand a bit more of the relationship of these three characters and sort of giving us closure to Hikari and Saya, but it mainly focuses on delivering a wholesome and laid-back romantic summer story, so you're mainly going to see dates and cute romantic conversations, so don't go expecting a ton from the story of Interstellar Focus. But what Interstellar Focus does extremely well is the comedy and presentation. It heavily reminds me a lot of Alcana Extra 1 in terms of its animation and writing. The animation has a similar style like Extra 1, where a lot of the sprites like to move around, and there's some effects here and there that will be used for comedic purposes, and most of the time it works fantastically well due to a lot of them having some great timing within the moments in the story. They're unpredictable, but expect some really great jokes. There's one that involves Hinami and it's genuinely one of the funniest moments in the entire VN. And within the writing, it's a mixture of cheeky comedy writing and a few slapstick moments and wholesome romantic writing that really does a good job focusing on the relationship as well as the struggles in order to keep this kind of relationship going. And I think it does a great job balancing both. Plus there's only a bit of drama within too that actually works out nicely. Again, the writing is exploring how this kind of relationship would work to even see these two childhood friends come together in this kind of relationship. To me, it's kind of uncommon or even rare to see a polyamory relationship in a VN, mostly in a harem situation, so when I first heard about Interstellar Focus, I was surprised by the concept, but after reading it, it honestly works. Interstellar Focus also delivers some new content within, like new pieces of music, some new CGs and backgrounds, new sprites, and a unique execution to continuing on the story of the original visual novel, as this takes place after the story of the original Sky Full of Stars. So we'll see a lot of the other heroines and side characters doing their own thing, while we focus on the relationship between Akito, Hikari, and Saya. But one special new thing that Interstellar Focus adds is a brand new mode after completing the fandisc, and that's Quiz Mode. Based on some of the ideas within the fandisc, it's a very short but fun mode that allows you to get the chance to see short segments focusing on one of the many girls from the series, even focusing on the side girls as well, not just Miharu and Hinami, but also Noriko and Naru. In order to see the scenes, you have to complete a set of questions based on astronomy, which is definitely a cool idea for a side game and fits well with the series. After beating their respective questions, you'll see a short scene that focuses on them within the canon story of Interstellar Focus. I think this is a fantastic inclusion because in reality, it's sort of a way to give closure to the stories of all these girls. We've been with all these girls ever since the original visual novel, and the way they're treating these short scenes, especially within the writing, it's like an ending to their story. It's a nice way to give us a short scene focusing on these girls and exploring more on what happened after the original. If you want to know more about the quiz mode, read the novel and find out yourself. The whole relationship between Akito, Hikari, and Saya in all honesty was done extremely well. A polyamory relationship, in my opinion, can work well if done correctly within a visual novel. With these three being childhood friends and understanding that they all love each other, this is where this kind of relationship works well in this fandisc. At first, it's treated like a joke because both girls are trying to process the idea of this kind of relationship, but as they fully understand the concept of it, along with their love for Akito, they accept it. It's kind of why these three work together well as a polyamory relationship. These are childhood friends that were meant to be together, a group that, while had struggles during their childhood, have reunited due to their love for astrology. They all know that without each other, their life wouldn't be the same. Their friendship is what makes them all feel special to each other. There's a moment within the story that truly makes us understand that their relationship with one another helps them achieve and overcome a lot of things. Whether it's Akito helping these girls out with their struggles, or Hikari and Saya understanding that they're all connected with one another. Ever since their childhood, maybe there was a reason why being in a relationship like this works well for the three of them. And I think that's why, or I guess I should say, that's what works well with this kind of story. The execution, the romance, the comedy, and how everything all comes together. Interstellar Focus does a great job giving us a unique perspective, but treats it with such faithfulness that everything honestly just feels right. What PULLTOP did here was great. It was done carefully and with a purpose. So I'm glad they were able to execute this kind of fandisc. So that was the Sky Full of Stars series of visual novels. I think it was nice going back and taking a look at these novels once again. The original and Fine Days were one of the first visual novels I've ever read. So to me, these are easily some of the more likable and memorable visual novels to me. They're easily accessible to newcomers, they're enjoyable to read due to its comedy, drama, and romance, and it has a cast of likable characters that all fit well within the story. If you want to read a visual novel and don't know where to start off with, then go and give the Sky Full of Stars series a shot. And if you enjoy those three visual novels, go and check out the If My Heart Had Wings series a shot as well, as it plays similar to A Sky Full of Stars. So, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching.
If you would like to support the channel, we recommend subscribing to the channel's Patreon or follow our Twitter account. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you!